Happy Monday, everyone. I hope you had a good weekend. It's time for another edition of Mansplaining the Masters. This week's featured artist is one of my favorites, Robert Rauschenberg. Robert Rauschenberg's pretty famous for inventing, maybe the better word for it is expanded on collage by using the things that he found around his studio, things that he found in the trash, industrial sites, stuff like that in his work, and then painting over the top of it. But what I love about his work is that everything still feels formally attractive. His use of color and proportion is very sophisticated. He's essentially an abstract artist in this sense, even though he's using lots of physical materials, doors, and things like that. And even though it's easy to see them as arbitrary, kind of hodgepodge of junk, there is a formal intelligence at work here, I promise. And so he coined the term combines to describe this approach, which I would call kind of collage deluxe. If you want to learn more about these combines, the Met had a show about 20 years ago, and the website page for that show is really good. But I just want to point out here at the bottom of this paragraph, he found his signature style by embracing non-traditional materials while always demonstrating rigor and concern for formal composition. So these, as I said before, these aren't just arbitrary. He was very intelligent with his arrangement and design. So this one here is my favorite of all of his work. That's saying a lot. He has a lot of work, and I like a lot of it. I want to point out a compositional trick he's using that is often called clustering. I call it that. I've heard other people call it that as well. So let's deep dive a little bit into what he's doing, what I mean by clustering. You can see that there are three main collections of information. The first grouping is the one that draws the most attention. I'm calling that the primary. You can call it a focal point if you'd prefer, but this is the primary grouping. It contains the most interesting stuff. It's got text in there. It's got recognizable iconography. There's lots of little details and things, lots of scrapes and scratches, and the color is very attractive. It's red. The next group is also important, but it doesn't command as much attention as the primary grouping, that first cluster of information, the Coke stuff. Notice how he's repeating some of the colors from the primary grouping, but he's also introducing a few new colors. In fact, if you look closely, there's a fun little primary triad, blue, yellow, red, that he's getting right there. But the red repeats from the Coke ad, the white repeats from the Coke ad, and there's a little bit of shape similarity as well. The bottle itself aligned with this piece, and even that juxtaposition there sort of, kind of imitates a bottle. And then the third grouping would be the least interesting. And in fact, it's almost the same as, let's call it the background, except it deviates from the background by having a slight difference. The folds and length give it slightly more interest than the background, but it's not as interesting as the primary or secondary grouping. And that's a great effect because it doesn't hold our interest for very long, and it allows us to release our attention from that area and return to the primary group. And after that, we can run through the cycle many more times and pick up additional bits of information like the stains and the drips and all of that stuff that we may have skipped when we were looking at it for the first time. And so it's a repeating cycle. The idea here is that that cycle repeats, and each time you go through it, you start to pick up new little bits of information, and you can look at it for a long time and keep finding cool things, but it still feels very organized and not overwhelming. So that's a great compositional trick. The way to think about it, the way I think about it, is you just create a triangle. 1, 2, 3. You place your most important stuff there, create a little hierarchy, a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary. And if you want to learn more about this, I have a class coming up, the second in our Creative Design Strategies for Artists series. This one is the Rule of 3. We're going to talk about this concept in that class coming up March 11th. You can sign up for that on my website. So good luck, everyone. Have a great week.